the more we conceptualize and compartmentalize, the more we limit. Like think about genres of music. Like the more you try to put them in a shoebox, the less freedom those artists have to make whatever it is that they need to express. And so that's kind of what the whole song is about kind of unleashing and destroying your own conceptions and connotations with words and with reality so that you can open up to kind of a bigger picture.
Hello, misters and misses, you lovely little lustful blisses. I'm sure glad that you're here with me today. I'd like to remind you that you can find me on iTunes and Stitcher, and I really would appreciate it if you could share this podcast with your friends. Folks, podcasting is getting to be a pretty popular format for media, and if nothing else, just start talking to people who listen to boring old radio and introduce them to some great podcasts that are out there. If you'd like, I could give you some suggestions if you just reach out to me on Facebook at facebook.com/subversionwebcast. However, I would really, really appreciate it if you would give me a mention to anybody that you know that might like this program. And if you would be so kind as to go on the iTunes store and look up this podcast and give me a 5-star review and a little bit of kind words, it would really help me. It would boost my ratings at this early point, give me some good stats. So yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you in advance. My guest today, his name is Dan Mark, one of my best friends, lovely person, just love the guy. Yeah, a bard in every sense of the term. The guy's always doing something. He's always got something awesome going on. So, yeah, without stealing too much of our breath, why don't you just take a listen here to my interview with Dan Mark. And by the way, please stick around all the way till the end of the song. At the very end, I've got a message for you.
Well, hey there. My name is Dan Mark. How do you do?
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're coming from?
Oh, well, classic Clear Lake, Iowa, home of the death of Buddy Holly. That's our claim to fame. I grew up there, born in old 1990, through the boom years of the 90s. Life was good as a little kid. My parents owned a pizza place. Grew up until the age of 5, about a block away from the pizza place, with both the parents kind of going back and forth, managing the pizza place. And so kind of grew up grating cheese and tossing dough and doing all the pizza stuff. And then, around the age of 5, we moved into a different house. And shortly thereafter, my parents got divorced. My dad moved away. And my mom basically ran the pizza place, which... I never took the divorce like a personal matter, really. It just kind of seemed like, they needed to do whatever they needed to do. So it was kind of all right with me, but it kind of made it so that, my mom was running the pizza place. My dad was like 45 minutes away in this other town with this other family. And so my sister and I kind of, after school, we just kind of were kind of doing our own thing, which was kind of a double-edged sword because, you're like probably after like the age of 7 or so that we kind of had our independence. And, so, we kind of learned to figure out how to, eat our own after-school snack and like, what are we going to do? Fortunately, there's a daycare right across the street from us that the lady there was really great, and there was some good friends there, so I would always tend to bop over there after school and hang out, but kind of led to an independence that I don't think that most or many kids have access to, so. Right.
Yeah, and I feel like that you said it right, that it's sort of a double-edged sword because you had this independence that a lot of people don't experience, and to the converse, what's what's it like to have a helicopter parent? I personally don't know, but
Yeah,
that's got to
right.
come with its downfalls as well. And all things considered, I'd say that you're one of the more collected and chill people that I know. But how much can you attribute it to the manner in which you grew up, and how much of it is just
Nature
how
versus,
you're wired?
Yeah, nature versus nurture. No one can say. I seem to have been blessed with a generally accepting demeanor.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's because I haven't been faced with a bunch of like mortal challenges in my life. Really, I've had a pretty easy go at it, I would say. But even faced with things like my parents' divorce, it kind of just seemed like I said, something that was not related to me on a personal level. So I don't know. Maybe that's just the blessing that I have, is the ability to, I don't know, view things in that way, accepting and being more rational than emotional. I don't know if that's even a correct dichotomy, but
Right. The pizza place that your mom owned is definitely iconic, I would say, in our small town.
yeah, man, we're the pizza monopoly of Clear Lake, Iowa.
At least good pizza.
Yeah. I mean, it's Bread Dough Pizza, so it was a kind of a small town franchise. We used to have these napkins that had it had a list of all of the bread dough pizzas in Iowa, and I think Missouri as well. And there's like a couple hundred of them. And then slowly the management became kind of less than good, and yeah, my mom kind of just strayed away from it. She's never been the kind to be towing the line anyway, and so she just recently in the last year switched from Bread Dough Pizza to Papa Everett's Pizza, which Papa Everett is my great grandpa and one of my mom's heroes. So it was kind of nice to finally, after 27 years of being a franchisee of this like slowly fading franchise, now she's just her own entity, and that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's liberating, I'm sure, for her. I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to her much, since then, since I'm never in Clear Lake.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been an existential crisis isn't the right word, but an existential, definitely, contemplation, because she felt very secure in that whole identity, in that whole world, and now she kind of has to examine what it is, that why does she even want to run a pizza shop, and she's been running it for 30 years, and how much longer does she want to? And it's like, she looks to me and my sister, and certainly neither of us want to live in Clear Lake, Iowa, and run a pizza shop for our lives. Mm-hmm. Not that it's not a satisfactory lifestyle. It's just that, it's a big world out there, and we've got a lot that we could do.
Right. Let's talk about going to school in one of these small towns. A lot of people that are going to be listening to this are folks that live in like a metropolitan area. They may have went to a school where there's hundreds, thousands of kids in their class, in their graduating class rather.
Sure.
And for us, everyone knew everyone, and there's a sort of insidiousness to that, don't you think? Like where there's a security in a small community that you don't have in a city.
We're back to the double-edged sword here.
Right. So you have the security of knowing your neighbors, but it comes with this lack of privacy in a way, where gossip is pretty big in the grand scheme of things. Like, people are gossiping about each other's kids when they're going out to the deli or to the grocery store or whatever. And when you go to these places out into the grocery store or whatever, you can't be anonymous. I really do enjoy when I'm going to the grocery store living up here, that I can just go and do my thing, and I'm not going to get into a 15-minute nothing conversation with someone. I mean, because let's be honest about it. A lot of the times when you run into someone that you haven't seen since high school or something in our hometown, there's not really much of a conversation happening there.
Well,
and it's
oftentimes I feel a little bad because when I come into these circumstances where I see these, the people who I grew up with and shared a bunch of experiences with, I guess I'm living by blessing and opportunity and choice. I'm living a lifestyle that is pretty incredible, and you can't compare apples to oranges. I mean, lifestyles are just choices, and they're all, it's all a valid choice. It's whatever you want to do. But when I come back to Clear Lake, Iowa, and I talk to people who are just living in Clear Lake, Iowa, and I take interest in, you have some kids now, like you're involved in the school board, like what are you doing? How are you revitalizing our community? And I genuinely take interest in that. But it tends to be that these conversations, it's hard for me to have the conversation not become one-sided, because oftentimes people don't feel valid in that choice to just stay in one place when compared to a life of art and adventure, or whatever, however you want to describe my life. And so I have a hard time basically not. I want to be humble and not be like, oh yeah, so I'm just like whatever, traveling the world and stuff.
Humble brag.
How's Clear Lake treating you? And so it's like I said, it's a valid choice, and there's a huge part of me that wishes that I could just, meet some lovely woman and have kids and just set up a zone and do that. But that's just not where my path is taking me, and so. That tends to be my struggle when coming into contact with these people, because inevitably the conversation turns into them expressing that they wish that they could live a life like I'm living. And it's like, okay, well, we all have all of those elements. I wish I could be living a stable and rooted existence with family and friends surrounding me, but that's not my choice. I'm sacrificing those things for the benefit of other things, world travel, and trying to kind of level up my perspective and experience.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunately, I can't help but come back to the subject I was avoiding, which you find more value in your life in doing what you're doing, which is I don't know that we've touched on this quite enough, but Dan, you've graduated college now, and more or less you're making it your let's call it market research in the world, or I mean the career that you're going into, which is, I don't even know, performance art, like just living your life, and these other people that stayed in our hometown, and God, I just don't want to badmouth people that stay in the hometown and just like that security, because it's obviously they value that.
Well,
they
like
value
I said,
being around their family.
That's a valid choice, and there are huge parts of me that also desire that. It's not, it's making a sacrifice one way or the other. They're sacrificing their freedom to do what I'm doing, and I'm sacrificing security and relationships to do that. So it's it's just a choice in either way, and both of them have happy aspects and sad aspects, But to clarify for all of the listeners out there, I graduated with a degree in performing arts, which people are always like kind of skeptical as to what you might be able to do with that. But I've been basically managing to really use that degree in a variety of ways, performing for children, doing art modeling and that sort of thing. But my life trajectory has kind of led me to be more focused on just traveling, so that my art does not come from just a Midwestern white dude perspective, because ultimately it will always root down to that perspective. But the more I can interact with the world at large, and the more people I can get to know and experience, the more compassion I will have, and the more of a variety of perspectives that I'll be able to incorporate into my art. And so, and my art ultimately is not my goal in my life. My goal in my life is to try and provoke creativity from others. And so I also feel in that goal that in order to successfully do that in a way that's not pretentious and that's informed, I need to travel. And so that's why I've been spending the last 5 to 6 years doing as much traveling as possible.
Yeah, I'm into it. And, I really don't remember who said this, and I've probably heard it several times, but if you're going to do something, you really just have to kind of go all in on that thing. And I almost feel that way with this project, is like I'm kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah.
And I either need to, dedicate myself to it. And I mean, obviously this isn't a full-time gig. I wouldn't have to like quit my job to do this. Although I could be doing other things, related to a program like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if I really wanted to make this my career, I could do it. It would just be a very painful transition into monetizing that and making a living, doing that. So I'm sort of stuck in this in between, like what's practical and pragmatic for me and what I really do want to do with my time.
Well, and that's kind of the paradox of it all because, like I said, graduated with a performing arts degree. Well, performing arts is kind of my underlying passion in my own arts. But I'm also heavily pursuing poetry and music and painting and all of these things. And so, I'm really kind of doing the folly of pursuing, a million different things at once. But the underlying goal is a more overarching kind of thing where it's not, there's no hard and fast path that's laid clear for me to be able to inspire people to like find their own creative purpose. And so I guess the only way that I see forward is all of the ways at once. So I'm trying to take them all.
Right. Well, so let's get into your creative endeavors now. I know we're kind of going on the fly here. I didn't really talk to you much about this, but do you have some pieces in mind that you want to talk about? Some songs, some original songs of yours that are of great importance to you?
Well, yeah, music has been for me the most simple means of digging in when it comes to expressing myself and finding meaning in my life. And that's probably because music is so, if I'm trying to create a theater piece, it's like, okay, I've got any tool that exists to try and create meaning or discover meaning. Well, with music, you have very specific tools. It's your instrument, whatever you choose that to be, and your voice, pretty much. And so you've got basically poetry and whatever tones you decide to create. And so music, it seems to me like a simpler way to plug in, even though I hope to kind of eventually dig more into the performance art. But basically music, I've basically just decided to carry a guitar around with me since I was about 19. I didn't start even playing guitar since I was 19, or until I was 19. And so basically I remember there was one specific day where I turned to my dad and I was just sitting there diddling around with a guitar on the couch. And at first, when you start playing guitar, you feel like, wow, my fingers just don't do this. Like, this is not... you basically have to create the muscle ability for your hands to be able to do it. And I remember turning to my dad and saying, Dad, I wonder if I just do this a little bit every day, like, will I eventually be able to like play songs and like do all this stuff? And, of course, that's obvious. Yes is the answer to that.
Right. And your dad is a saxophone player.
My dad is a saxophone player.
I'm not sure if I missed that just now, but...
So I always looked up to musicians as like this great thing that I really wished that I could be. But like so many other people, you look at it from afar and you say, wow, that would be really cool if I could just do that. Well, one day the thought occurred to me, well, okay, anybody who is doing that currently, there came a time in their life when they picked up the instrument having no idea what it did and said to themselves, I wonder, like, if I just sat with this, like, how far could I go? And that is the correct answer, is like, yes, you just have to take the time. That's it. Like, I'm about to move to Taiwan, and I picked up a learning Chinese book the other day. And, like, I'm looking at all these symbols like, whoa, that's a lot. But at the same time, I know now, through my experience in creation of all kinds, that if I just pick up these Chinese symbols and I go to China and I start figuring out Chinese, that in a couple of years, I'll be able to speak Chinese. So,
Right.
like, you know, see you in a couple of years. I'll be doing a Chinese podcast next, you know?
So and I think a lot of people look up to people who are famous performers, and all they see is wow, that person, you know, got to this point in their life. They're not, you know, and they see this as a life of privilege, and that you know, like they just got lucky, and,
Right.
and they're not lucky because they couldn't do that, because they abandoned their singing career and or being a musician back in high school or college, you know. And I think people discount those who have become successful in a way, because they don't see the amount of work and the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that went into getting to that point. Because seldom are people who are famous performers just there because of raw talent or luck alone. Neither of those two things. There's a lot of pageantry and there's a lot of hard work that goes into that. I feel like people often do end up discounting, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, people don't see the hours of rehearsal time. That's a pretty unglamorous bit of being an artist, is all of the times that you made art that was subpar.
Right.
I mean, you have to make 1,000 paintings before you make a good one, you know, and obviously that's an exaggeration, but like the product is not what matters when it comes to making art. It's just doing it. And if you just keep doing it and not care about the product, but just keep being interested and driven by the process, then your product, it will keep getting better and better, and people will interact with your product in whatever way that they're going to anyway. So don't worry about the product. There was this great lecture that I went to at the U of M, University of Minnesota, for theater, and this theater artist came in and she said, you know, so you're making this work of theater and this work of performance, and you don't even know what it is you're trying to do. You're just like, you're up on a stage and you're like screwing around, and it seems maybe useless to you, but you have some concept and you're working towards it. Well, then comes along an opportunity to perform that for people. And of course you think to yourself, well, I don't even really know what I'm doing yet. Like, I just have some concept and I'm like, it doesn't feel like any kind of completed thing. But she said, if you have the opportunity to perform it or show it to people at all, wherever it's at all, just take that opportunity, because that is going to drive your work forward. And it doesn't matter what the people think of the work at the time. What matters is the process being driven forward. And if you always take those opportunities that present themselves, then you will always be pushed forward. You know, David Bowie said, if you want to make good art, find where you're most uncomfortable and go there. You know, so I just would encourage anybody, if you have an opportunity that makes you feel really uncomfortable, but it's like also somehow your deepest desire to do it, like just take the opportunity and stop worrying so much.
Yeah, I think that's key advice too, and especially to get over the psychological hurdle that keeps you from getting into that trance of sort of being a passenger to what you're creating, you know? Because I don't know about you, but in my experience being, you know, in the little creative endeavors that I've done, when you lose the self in what you're creating, you certainly feel more fulfilled in it, and the product ends up being quite a bit better.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a matter of overthinking or just doing. Basically, I know that I've given my best theater performance if after the show I don't remember the show.
Yeah.
Because that means I was really channeling whatever it was that I was doing. I wasn't sitting there on stage. And, there are definitely plenty of times when I'm on stage doing some role and I'm actually just like thinking about whatever. I'm Dan Mark. I'm not whoever I'm supposed to be. And so, yeah. I mean, it's a practice of letting go of the judgment of your situation that your ego normally just puts on everything, and letting go of that and just allowing whatever work it is to flow out. And the more you can do that, the more people will feel that and be receptive to it.
Right. So let's consume the product then. What's one song that you could share with us?
Well, yeah. So my music started with just a deep love for travel. I guess playing on the streets was kind of that was where I made the transition between picking around on a guitar, screwing around, and now I need to actually play songs. There was a time on my first big solo adventure, I was kind of just reaching that point of being like, oh, maybe I can play a song. And I went to a rainbow gathering, which is basically just a nomadic group of hippies that go and meet each other. And I was sitting around this fire with this group of hippies, and there was like this old Native American lady, and she was kind of like leading the fire and like telling stories and singing songs and stuff. But then she was also like people with guitars around. She would be like, hey, do you have something to share with us? Whatever. People were playing all these wonderful songs, and she turned to me and she was like, because I had a guitar in my hand, but I was just kind of diddling along with people. And she was like, do you have something to share with us? And at that moment, I had this deep desire to participate and to show what I had in my soul, but I was not ready. I said no, I don't have anything to share, because I didn't. Mm-hmm. I couldn't play any songs yet. I just diddling around on a guitar. But the second part of this mission was to hitchhike from Wisdom, Montana down to San Francisco over the course of a month and a half, and my goal was to use zero of my own money aside from just money that I earned on the street making art. And so that rainbow gathering experience where I was not ready to share with the people, combined with the next month and a half where the only way I could eat food was if I directly interacted with people and expressed my need and also my ability to provide them with something. I was not trying to be getting somebody's sympathy. I was trying to win them over and provide them with some sort of experience. And so my first songs really came out of this deep desire to express myself, my soul musically, but also this desire to give people something that would make them want to help me, help themselves, and help each other. And so my first song that I ever wrote in that regard is a song called Vibrational Theory, and it's about life on the road and how if you kind of raise your vibrations and you put that out into the world, then people will be receptive to that and will basically jive with you, and you can help each other in amazing ways.
Trying to find the next place with thoughts multiplying the blessings which been bestowed upon us all. Looking to the find your courage and build your resolve. And build your resolve. Address my own limitations, rearranging my own destination, so that my mind and my body evolve. The channeling peaceful vibration, turning darkness and fear to creation. Use your talents to find balance. Use your talents to find balance. Use your talents to find balance. Problem solve. All your problems are solved. Trying to get my spirit higher, detaching myself from desire. If you were grounded, you got nowhere to fall. Don't you know that your smile can inspire? You got me killing my inner fire. Use your face to find grace, and you'll never be out of place. Life's a rhythm, not a race, and you know there is a place for us. Know there is a place for us. So please tear down those walls, so you can send humble and just let them crumble and fall.
Currently, my whole song list is about 15 to 20 of my own original songs. And for the last 2 years or so, I had my first project working with a band. We're called the Enigmanauts. And that was really a great experience, because I wanted to come into that group and, you know, my original idea, because I had been developing my songs over the course of a couple years, basically touring around Europe, touring around wherever, and just playing my songs out on the street for people. And a lot of my songs are developed directly to play on the street. You know, I was touring around Europe with a classical guitar, and I quickly came to realize that playing classical guitar in the streets of Europe without an amp or anything, and with my own music, was going to be not very effective. And so all of the songs that I wrote during that time kind of had a, hey you, I'm here, like, playing a thing, give me money sort of vibe about them. You know, they're very, like, in your face kind of. So I developed this small repertoire of songs like that. And then I came back to the States, and some guys who I had been jamming with for the last couple years anyway, just whenever I had the opportunity, they had happened to move up to the Twin Cities, where I was kind of based whenever I was in the States. And so I came into that group of guys and I said, hey, like, you guys aren't, like, doing anything aside from jamming, so let's make something out of this. And my original idea was to just be like, hey, I've got a bunch of songs, so let's just perform all my songs and we'll be a band. But I quickly came to realize that they had all been working and developing their own work as well. You know, whether or not they had been performing it for anybody, they all had deep talents and things to express. And so it quickly became something that was originally going to just be my project, and I quickly realized that it would be like a crime of the ego to have it be like that. And so instead, we all came together. We all had equal part and equal creative say. And basically, there's 4 of us, and whoever's song is up steps up to the mic, and we all switch to whatever our proper role is. And we play that song. And so, yeah, I guess a song that was kind of one of my original, I guess my first best song, my first song that I wrote that kind of makes people stop and stare, is a song called "Take Your Finger Off It," and in that song, it's about well, it's about a variety of things. There's a lot of, it's heavy in the lyrical content, but ultimately it's about the more we conceptualize and compartmentalize, the more we limit. You know, like think about genres of music. Like the more you try to put them in a shoebox, the less freedom those artists have to make whatever it is that they need to express. And so that's kind of what the whole song is about kind of unleashing and destroying your own conceptions and connotations with words and with reality so that you can open up to kind of a bigger picture.
You want to know how you're feeling, and I want to know your inner demons, 'cause I can't ever tell if I'm awake or dreaming, and I can't ever know if things will go as they seem. About the trees and the degrees of the season, twisting and the wishing where the systems and the vision for treason, paralyzing their disguise to analyze my open eyes and open ties are broken from the choking on the reason why invoking words are spoken as the soaking and the water is freezing. Some would say that wisdom begins with the fear of God. I find this hypothesis of Genesis so I pierced him to be but forget about those who think to know. And the wisdom plans the visions of the ones who know they don't. If you found the destination, then you got nowhere to go. But if you are a traveler unraveling the fabric of a universe, the one rehearsing, searching for some magic, the intangible, tangible, fallible, fallacy, nomenclature to live a reality, science and dialogue within a word. To know the unknowable, you must hear the unheard. Hear the unheard. Because we can't contemplate dialogue with other cultures in language of hate. Breeds relationships of vocal. If we will communicate, we must go beyond the vocal and language of hate has got the nation in a chokehold. But if you see me in you, we can go beyond the national aggressions. We'll continue till the answers are in fashion. The unnatural nature of our nomenclature creates an erasure like time and a glacier by rhyming with nature, unwinding the guys. If we will know God, we must look into each other's eyes. Look in my eyes. I want to know how you're feeling, and I want to know your inner demons, 'cause deep inside of your eternal hell is there a heaven that's gleaming. Peace of mind will be with those who dwell within the leisure of breezing. If we stop retaliating and we start communicating, unity will prove to be the movement to undo the hatred in the quest for freedom. You are free, and so the key is just being. I said the key is just breathing. I said the key is just being.
currently my trajectory. So I stopped working with the Enigmanauts because I wanted to move on in like the geographical sense. I wanted to go and travel a bunch more, and I was very sad to do that because we were really on the cusp of really actually breaking through in the Twin Cities music scene, and we had about 22 tracks. You know, we're really doing some really great work. So I'm currently recording with them before I skip off to Taiwan. Should have an album out soon. But I'm also looking forward. I'm planning on creating my own solo album while I'm in Taiwan. And I believe that album is going to be called Swiss Cheeses. It's, we grew up in the United States is a very Christian-oriented society, which is, it's kind of a small cross-section of the U.S. I mean, ultimately, it's basically white Christians who tend to have been running the show for the last couple hundred years. And so even though that's a small part of the population, it's a huge part of the policy and the rhetoric. And so this whole album is going to be a direct critique of the socio-political interactions of white Christians in the United States. And not that not to say that my only beef with organization or politics is aimed at these people. It just so happens that they're the people who have been the oppressors in the society that I grew up in. And so so this whole album is going to be focused on that and that critique. And to that end, I have a song called General U, in parentheses, a scathing review. And General U is basically, I always make the joke that it's about some Japanese general who did this like war stuff over there and was taking over and all of this. General U. There's just why it's YU, it's not YOU. But actually, the song is about how we all have some generalized other who we kind of blame things on or we take out our frustrations on. And for me, that generalized other tends to be the white Christian, as I said, because they are the ones who have been tending to make policy in our society. And so it's kind of a critique on my own critique in a way, because it's so easy as an artist to just say, you this, you that, well, you are doing this. But who is that you? Like, until you get into specifics, you're not actually doing anything aside from, stroking your own conception of what's good and what's bad. And so the song, the lyrics are very clearly anti-Christian, anti-religious right-wing American propaganda, but the overarching message basically encompassed by the name of the song is, yes, even though I had these specific critiques, they are just basically, that's just like my perception, man. And, other people are going to have a different general you in their lives. And so I hope that you would take this critique with the grain of salt, that it is based completely on my own perception of the situation. So without further ado, General U, a scathing review.
And just 'cause you walk on water don't mean you won't drown in the air. And just 'cause you're blue never good. I know you're good, don't mean that you'll never get burned. And just 'cause it could, I know it could happen, don't mean that it's my concern. Your selfish superstition ain't paying no tuition. There is no intermission. Hope you found your intuition. The cheap seats aren't paying off. I hope you like the view. 'Cause where you're busy talking, there are those of us who do. Your decision against personal responsibility is indeed rather regrettable. Your petty vision and your inability make your deed rather forgettable. Yes, at best they're forgotten, the things which you begot to. Irrefutable, rancid, rank, wrong, and rotten. It's irrefutable. You ought to try to claim that your conscience is close to credible. False hand will love the meek, decider of the weak. You claim to bring together but divide with words you speak. You claim to bring together but divide with words you speak. False harbinger of peace, arbiter of fleece. Cloaked in your soft words is the fate of the deceased. Cloaked in your soft words is the fate of the deceased. And just 'cause you won for nothing don't mean that you can't lose. And just 'cause you pay for something don't mean that you can't choose. And just 'cause you think you own us don't mean that we ain't free. And just 'cause you never shown us don't mean that we won't see.
I think you touched on in your commentary about this song something really important that I feel like people really should recognize, which is to have inner reflection is to reflect on humanity as a whole. Because as much as we don't want to admit it in some sort of way, even though we have to recognize the sovereignty of the individual, that there is certainly something connected in our experience with other people, and to critique your own general you is paramount to understanding someone else's view of self and just culture in general, I feel like. So
Absolutely.
I think that self-reflection is paramount to a peaceful world that we all would like to envision.
Right, because even though it feels so good to just vent your frustrations towards whoever your general you is, and many of those frustrations may be valid. Nonetheless, it's paramount to understand that general critiques aren't going to take us anywhere so much as positive suggestions of how we could do things differently.
Sure.
You know, it doesn't do anything to just say, well, these people are just doing the wrong thing. They're just being bad. What we need to focus on in the end, post General U, is specific I. You know, like, what am I going to do about this? What are we going to do about this?
Sure.
So maybe that'll be the next song is specific I or something like that. I don't know.
Now, and I think it is worth bringing up that a critique or criticism of someone is not an indictment of someone or something. For example, if you let's bring up something else controversial, because we've already went there in this podcast. But if you get critical of Israel, you're called an anti-Semite. And I'm sorry, but a lot of things that Israel has done, and a lot of things that Palestine has done, quite frankly, aligning with Hamas and whatnot, and with Israel, how they drive the conflicts in the Middle East. I think calling a duck is not being. You're not like damning a whole group of people just because you're critical of what some groups of in that group of people are doing.
And that's why it was important to name this song General U, because it would have been so easy to just leave it at the Christians are everything that's wrong with this society. It would have been so easy to leave it at all Trump supporters are racist bigots. It's so easy to just take it there and to not actually have any kind of critical frame of reference. But all that does is alienate all of the actual individuals who are, for the vast majority of the people, they're just trying to live their lives in whatever way that they perceive as like the right way to do it. And so, you know, the Christians on an individual level aren't, you know, going around oppressing people, generally speaking. And so, yeah, when I indict Christians, I'm not saying I'm not going to be friends with a Christian or Christians are terrible people as individuals. I'm saying the group of people has momentum that tends to go in directions that, you know, that can be bad. And yeah, we need to think about that without falling into the very easy trap of just basically name calling or indicting, as you're saying.
I think this is a really great time to transition into death, since we're on theology. How do you conceptualize death, Dan?
Well, the main thing that I like to say about death is
imagine double kick drums and
get the blast beats going.
Some crazy metal guitar.
Yeah. Death, I feel like I am incredibly blessed and privileged that in my life I haven't had to directly experience death, really. You know, my grandma died last Christmas, and that, honestly, I'm 27 years old, and that's the first, like, person who I've been directly, like, that I knew, aside from, I had a friend who killed himself many years ago, but aside from those two things, I've been basically, everyone seems invincible to me still, so I would say that when it comes to death, I'm very naive, and on the other hand, it allows me to that kind of mixed with my general like new agey experience as a traveling hippie artist person, kind of allows me to be somewhat aloof and somewhat. I guess I've done my best to attempt to accept the idea that death comes for us all, you know, and like I said, I haven't had much opportunity to test that experientially, but I can say when my grandma died, I didn't feel sad about it, you know, and it's not because my grandma wasn't a great lady. I loved my grandma, but it was because, you know, dying is kind of a grandma thing, you know, that'll happen to your grandma. She gonna die. And maybe your friend will die too. Who knows? And it'll hurt and it'll be a loss. But, I guess maybe I'm preparing myself for that already by traveling, by choosing the lifestyle of deep and fleeting relationships. I already am kind of sacrificing all of my friends and family anyway, which hurts, but maybe that will give me strength later when I actually have to face that sacrifice. I don't know.
So do you think the pain of death is something that drives you, even subconsciously?
Well,
because it seems like you're pretty comfortable with the idea of it.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of the things that people do, whether we want to admit it or not, has to do with us fighting the nothingness, because that's sort of maybe why religion is still alive, because we don't want to explain the end of our existence as an end of consciousness. You know what I mean? And we live our lives perhaps in a way that tries to defy that as much as we can.
Well, it brings up this paradox that I'm always trying to explain to people, which is that people tend to have a hard time with the idea that you can fully accept while simultaneously working against with a passion. So if there's a situation, for example, that you don't like, just because you fully accept that situation is there and it's not emotionally bothering you, doesn't mean that you aren't working as hard as you can against that. Mm-hmm. And, you can apply that to any situation in your life. People, one of the critiques that's brought to my attention about my own personal way of going about things is that people feel like oftentimes that I don't care about stuff.
Which is absurd.
Well, it is absurd, but at the same time, I tend, like I said earlier, maybe I'm blessed with the general demeanor of acceptance, but I tend to not necessarily be emotionally affected by things that much. Or maybe it's that I can't connect with my emotions. I haven't figured it out yet. But nonetheless, I am a very passionate individual, and I'm always working towards what I see as the best possible scenario. And so in the best possible scenario, everyone who I know and love is living long and fulfilling lives. And so, although I hope to not be devastated by people who are near to me dying, I hope to just be fully accepting of that. On the other hand, I am clearly going to do whatever I can to work against that,
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So, yeah, man, what I would like to do is give you a chance to maybe read one of your poems. Dan has a published poetry book that I can link you to in the show notes so that you can support Dan and support the amazing work that he's doing.
Yeah, so as far as death goes and losing someone goes, like I said, I might just be very naive because, maybe I won't be able to accept things at all. I haven't experienced it at such a deep level, really. But what I have experienced is the loss of a relationship who you invest yourself fully into love, and it seems like the other person is also fully invested, and then suddenly you kind of, one of you or both of you realize that that life is pulling you apart in whatever way, and that is kind of the deepest sense of loss that I've had to deal with. And so with that loss, I came to realize, my biggest realization was that I had been, the love that had been fulfilling me during this relationship had not necessarily been coming from the other person so much as it had been triggered by the other person within me. And so the love was coming from inside of me that was making me happy. And so the book that I basically, I wrote a series of poems during this time where I was dealing with this loss while simultaneously finding this inner light. And so I wrote a book, or I guess I compiled the poems written during this time into a book, which is called Mourning Till Morning. And so it's kind of mourning the loss of someone while simultaneously seeing the dawn of the day that's coming to you. And the book is it's like a little 50-page book. I have the great fortune of having some of my best visual artist friends who I know participating, and they threw down a bunch of great art for the book. And so soon I'll have a website up where you can purchase it. Trey will link you to that, and that'll be up soon. But okay, so this poem is called Tidal Mirror. Skies which rise before me in an endless mirror, longing, mirroring the ocean set in motions of belonging. I lay inside the waning tide, my visions ride the memory. The waves are washing thoughts aside and augmenting my reverie. I feel the mist through sky abyss which pours out of my eyes. Each drop which falls upon my face, remembrance on the rise. Waves of nostalgia, waves of grief. Ocean above, sky beneath. Winds which blow me to and fro, motion above, stillness below. Lost between the sun and moon, ahead is past, behind is soon. Can I find a stillness which will quell internal squall? Stillness in my skin will soon begin a deathly pall. Do I heed emotion and forsake the ocean's call? Should I move ahead and in my dread forget them all? If I could hold that warmth which once was breathed upon my skin, I might be able to release the memories within. Instead, I float upon the waves, somewhere between solid and gas, not quite upon the ocean, life, and not found in the squalor, past.
That song was simply too beautiful to just let end right where Dan stopped reading his poem. So I just figured I'd let it all play out, and I figured I'd let you guys know the original artist to that song is called Rachel's, and it's called Music for Egon Schiele. I think you should check them out. And yeah, just to give you a little bit of history here, I tried to make this program. The format was to use licensed music, actually. And I sort of had to adapt because of the legal problems with using licensed music. Is really a gray area for webcasting. So yeah, just to give you a little bit of how the sausage is made, as it were. But yeah, please share this with your friends. I'm really proud of this one here today. I think it went off really well. It's just, yeah, very proud of it. So if you could please share this with your friends, give me a 5-star review on iTunes and leave me some kind words. And keep an eye out. I know I keep saying this, but I'm going to have my own domain open up pretty soon here. I'm planning this weekend for real this time. So, yeah, I love you guys. Thank you for listening.